Hi, my name is Stacey Bell Lynn. I spent 20 years working in local news, and 13 years ago, I married an NFL player turned coach, Anthony Lynn, and joined the world of NFL Superwives. I've always loved hearing about the life behind the headlines. It's where you find the common thread that connects us. That's what I want to do here. My husband played and coached for the Broncos and 49ers. He's currently the running backs coordinator for the Commanders. We've moved 6 times across the country for his various jobs. When I first met my husband, I didn't know anything about football. I just loved the commercials and the snacks. Well, trust me, that's changed. In my new NFL world, the wives became my family and confidants. It is a sisterhood that transcends teams and rivalries. In each episode, I'll talk with a significant other of a player or coach, the football wives who hold it all together. We'll get real and give you a behind-the-scenes glimpse of it all. This is the world that I want to share with you. Welcome to Super Wives of the NFL, their inside stories. Let's kick it off. I'm Stacey Bell, and thanks again for joining us for another episode of Superwives of the NFL. My very special guest today is Melissa Gonzalez Blough. Melissa is, let me read this about you. She is a Colombian-American athlete, let me get my glasses, specializing in the 400-meter hurdles and the 4x400 meters relay. A native of El Paso, Texas, you hold Colombian citizenship and represent Colombia in international events. You've won gold medals, mostly in South America, but you're a gold medalist.
Yes. First of all, let me say thank you for having me on. But
Okay.
Yes, I've won gold medals in South American championships, national championships, and just some specific games that we have in South America and the Caribbean, including I didn't win a gold medal in the Pan-American Games, which includes the U.S. and Canada, but I have competed a lot all over the world.
That is amazing. Now, I want to take everyone back, and hopefully we can find this video. We were with the Lions, and your husband was the quarterback with the Lions at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so you were competing in the Tokyo Olympics.
Yes.
And they held a watch party for you at the team, the Lions did, at the facility, and he was cheering for you, and he went crazy. It was so cool to watch. That was the video that went viral, and it was when I figured out who your husband was, who you were. You're smiling when I talk about that. That was very cool. That was pretty. Do you still does that give you the warm and fuzzies to remember that happening?
Oh yes, it was so special, and I had no idea that they were going to do that. David had no idea that they were going to do that. And I remember coming back from the race and talking with David, and then later that evening for me, he had sent me a link to this video that they did, but it hadn't been posted on social media yet. And I was like, oh, that's so special for us to have. And then the next morning when I woke up, it had gone out in the US, and it just was completely viral. And people send it to me all the time. Oh, this popped up on my timeline. Probably once every 3 months, somebody will send it to me. It's making the rounds again. And yeah, it's so cool.
Well, his reaction was it was so authentic and so pure. And I think everybody was cheering along for you and with him in that moment. I had friends who were reposting it saying, do you know them? Have you met them? And I was like, I know of him. I don't think I've ever met her. Were you guys married at the time, or were you still dating?
Yes. So we got married March 2019, and so that was right before David's rookie year. And that video was in 2021. So we were married a little over 3 years, I think, when I went to the Olympics. Yeah.
So you guys were high school sweethearts.
Yep.
And you worked out. You're still together.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. Yes.
No, I hate to say that because my stepdaughter's like that too. She married her high school sweetheart, but that is really sweet that you've worked out. You've grown together, even with him being a quarterback in the NFL. You competing for the Olympics. What kind of support and understanding does that take? Because you two, those are pretty aggressive, hardcore careers.
Yeah, I think it's so special having someone, for both of us, being able to connect on just the amount of dedication and time and sacrifice that it takes to pursue a professional career in sports. And at least for me, it was really cool because football and track are opposite seasons. Football is mostly in the fall and track is mostly in the spring, summer. We were able to really be there in person for each other and support like whatever they needed to do without the distractions of having to go to our own practices. So that was really cool. And just understanding, like I said, the sacrifices and dedication that it takes to wake up and go to practice and eat right and train and do the extra stuff that is not like super fun and all the time what you want to be doing.
Now, do you still train? And let's back up a little bit. You guys are married. You have a daughter. How old's your daughter?
She is 1.5.
Okay, so do you still train? Like, you can't train like you did when you were competing, right? Yeah.
No, I don't train anymore. I decided when we had her that I was going to retire and just focus on being a mom. It's just so much. Being a mom is the most rewarding thing, and I loved it, and I have loved being able to be at home with her and just spend so much time together. And training takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I don't think that I would be able to train at the level that I would want it to train at in order to go back to the Olympics or World Championships or any of those kind of events, and also be the mom that I want to be at the same time. For me, I don't want to make those sacrifices on her behalf, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And so you guys made that decision, willingly. It wasn't something that you felt like you had to do. It was just your decision. So you obviously have no regrets about it.
Yeah, no regrets. I had never done anything other than run track every summer of my life since I was 14. So I was ready to kind of see what else I could put my dedication towards and see the next new chapter of my life as being a mom.
That is wonderful. And when I saw you, I think we met, I think it was a team function, maybe like after the games in the family tent or something. Mm-hmm. And Anthony introduced me to you, and I didn't know until when you walked away, he, explained more about who you were. And I said, oh, that's, the girl from the Olympics, from track. But you were just a mom, like, pushing your baby around in the stroller, like, so that's life now, and you're loving it.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's so fun. And she's at such a fun age right now, and she's talking, and we get to, go to parks together, and it's really, really fun.
Okay, so tell me about your family. I want to go back and read this, but you guys come from a pretty athletic family. You have a sister who's in track and field as well. Mm-hmm. Your brother plays for the Patriots?
Yes.
And then you have another sister, you said, who's turning 13 today, who's already on her way to becoming an athlete.
Yeah.
See, I feel like this is like a Texas thing where sometimes people are just groomed to be athletes, especially in football and track and field. But how does it happen that like everybody in your family has this athletic ability? Did your parents push you into this, or does it just come naturally for you guys?
I definitely think it's just something that God blessed us with. And my parents have always encouraged us to, find something that we enjoy doing. But I didn't start any sport until I was in 7th grade, so probably like 11 years old. And it just so happened to I tried pretty much everything, and this track is just the thing that I landed on, that I enjoyed doing and I was good at. And I think same for my siblings. And each one of us just kind of got to see the one before do a little bit, and so they tried that one and then a different thing. And yeah, it's really cool to see the support that we have among each other, and also understanding what it takes to compete at a high level. My dad came to the U.S. to play basketball in college, so he played at the University of El Paso, UTEP, and played a little bit in the South American League. So that was before any of us could remember, though. So But I guess, yeah, just competition has always been part of our family, and sports is just, like you said, a big part of life in Texas.
It is. Yeah, and I also think, too, when you have a parent who's an athlete, or then maybe the oldest sibling is the athlete, it kind of grooms this competitiveness where, the younger kids or just the kids in general feel like they have to be good athletes as well.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely like helps everyone find their thing and pushes each other to be better.
Now, you mentioned your dad came over from Colombia.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes during the Olympic seasons or whenever, we'll see people who are Americans, but they compete on behalf of Colombia. And that's kind of what you do. So
Mhm.
how does that work, that you have dual citizenship, right?
Yes. So since my dad is Colombian, I was eligible to receive my Colombian citizenship, even though I was born in the US. And after I graduated from college, I did that and decided to pursue my professional track career as a Colombian athlete in international competitions. So it's a pretty easy process in Colombia, I don't know what it's like for all the other countries, but yeah, I just had to go with my dad to an embassy and do some paperwork. And we had talked with the federation in Colombia that I had the intention of running for them. And so that was really helpful. And they were very helpful in that process. And yeah, my sister has also done it. My brother has not, but they don't play American football really in Colombia. So I don't know that he will. Although they are supposed to have flag football in 2028 at the Olympics. So who knows?
Now, do you do it, on behalf of Colombia because of like a family, like a heritage thing, or I don't know, is it easier to qualify? Like, why not just do it under the umbrella of American citizenship? And I'm just asking, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
that's a great question. And a lot of people ask that question because it kind of would make sense that I would run for the US because I was born here. And I always say the US is the hardest team to make across the board in any sport, an Olympic team for. And people like to say that it's harder to make the Olympic team than it is to win a medal in the Olympics because the American teams just always are in the top three and always winning medals. So when I was 16, I had tried out for a under 16 team for the U.S. and I ended up fourth place. So I missed making that team by one spot. And after that, I decided my best shot at making an Olympics would be to go for Colombia because you have less competition within your country and you can focus more on competing with the other countries already. So the U.S. athletes have to make it through 2 or 3 rounds within the U.S. before they can even get to the international competitions. And I didn't have to do that because I didn't have that many people competing against me in Colombia. So, it just depends on what your preferences are. If you have the ability to compete for another country, sometimes that's the best route to go. Sometimes it's not. So for me, I think that was definitely the best choice. And I'm really, really glad that I was able to do that.
Okay. So what is your training like when you're training for the Olympics or a competition? What is a typical day of training look like for you?
So a typical day would probably be I wake up in the morning, get ready to go to practice, and we would usually start about 9:30 and have practice from like 9:30 on the track. So we would go to a track and do our practice outside 9:30 to probably noon, maybe 12:30, and then go straight from there to a weight room, do our lifting for another hour, and then after that, you just refuel, have lunch, and then lots of recovery. So a lot of athletes go and see chiropractors, massage therapists, physical therapists, and do everything you can to help your body repair from all of the damage that you just put into it so you can be ready for the next day.
So there's no way you could do this, and I mean, I guess you could, but it would be a lot to do that and be committed to it, and then be committed to motherhood and being a wife. It would just be a lot to juggle,
Yes.
and I'm sure you could do it. But
yes, I know a lot of people do and have great support, and if I really wanted to, I probably could, but I think I'm really happy with my decision to just be with my little girl.
so what has it been like navigating all of this and at the same time being an NFL girlfriend and then wife? That's a lot, because the NFL life in and of itself is a lot, but you've juggled that with a career of your own for many years.
Yeah, I really do think that having my career helped me be able to juggle that, because I wasn't just in our football city for football. I was there also getting ready to train for my sport, and I had lots of friends outside of the football bubble. And I know a lot of women, especially when we were with the Lions for a long time, who had their own careers. They're creative women, painters, drawing, models, I mean, all kinds of people doing their own thing outside of the football world, so that they could have like their own identity separate from whoever they were dating or married to. And I think for me that was really important to have, just so that I could think about something other than what was going on the field.
Yeah, it gives you a nice distraction, and in a lot of cases a balance to your life, because you're not just singularly focused on football and everything else that entails.
Yeah.
So how do you handle, like, you guys are moving and you've got the baby, you've been in Detroit, and so now we're with the Commanders. Are those the only two teams you guys have been with?
No, so David was undrafted to the Cleveland Browns, and he was there for one training camp. And so I never moved to Cleveland because I was finishing my track season that year. During training camp is kind of the end of track season. And from Cleveland, he went to the Lions, and he was at the Lions for, I think, 2.5 years. Then went from the Lions to Minnesota and spent one season in Minnesota. And then we spent 1 month in Arizona that same season. And then we moved back to Detroit. And then that was not this past season, but the year before. And then went from Detroit to here, to the Commanders.
But you weren't competing at that time, were you?
I competed every year except for our last year with the Lions.
So you were doing all of that back and forth, and then at the same time you're training, you have to find people to train with, and you're moving and all of the things.
Yeah, so luckily we had our home base in Dallas, and so most of my training would be in Dallas, except for the very end of football season. I would train wherever we were in our football season, in the football year. And I had a good connection in Detroit with a coach that worked for Michigan, the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And so I would drive and use their indoor facility so I could train inside. And that was really helpful. But then we would go back to Dallas and we could train outside with my training group that was there all year.
That is fascinating. And you managed to do this and at the same time supporting your husband.
Yeah, we've had a great support system. A lot of friends who have really helped and encouraged us along the way that have made that possible.
Now, I wanted to read, there was something he said about you, and I want to find it, I think, where he said, it was something about how you have supported him in the off season, and you are the backbone to David during the off season.
Oh, that's sweet.
No, it is sweet. So, I mean, just talk about that a little bit, the kind of support that's required of, you to give to him.
I think it's just a lot of trusting each other, and we have to be really good at communicating because they spend so much time at the facility during their season. We have a lot more limited time together, so we have to be more efficient in our communication during that season. But then it switches very drastically to when they're in off season, they have a lot more time. And it's easy to just get into the routine of like, oh, we have no structure, but being more intentional with the time that we have together and making sure that we're connecting and finding ways that we can serve each other in that time, I think is really helpful and bleeds into the next football season when we are away from each other more often.
Yeah, we always say, you know, we don't have the quantity of our time is not great, so we have to make the most out of the quality of the time we have together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just being present for each other, connecting with each other is such a big part of it.
Yeah.
How has the support been for you from the other wives in the NFL?
So awesome. And when David was a player, when we were mostly with the Lions, and I just have never been on a team where I haven't found that the women are just as encouraging and supportive as the staff of the team. They're incredibly talented women, and everyone just wants to see each other succeed, and that's so cool. Everyone is, hey, how are you doing? How's running going? What's new with this new thing that you're doing? How can we support you in this? It's just really cool to see women really cheering each other on in that way. And I found that also in motherhood, since I've retired from running, and then David's first year as a coach this year, just people checking in. How are you doing with the transition? These are things that we've loved to do here with you can take your kids here. Just a lot of the same support, just in a different level or a different world, I guess, now that I'm not training.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, because I think that the women are so supportive of each other, and there's so many women with great accomplishments like you. I wanted to shine a light on that, as opposed to like, oh, you know, everybody wears these cute bedazzled clothes, which that's fun too.
Oh, yeah.
But I just think there's a lot more, you know, depth that I wanted to shine a light on. Mm-hmm. So being able to talk to people like you has just been the rewarding part of this. Now, you've been a player's wife and now a coach's wife. What are some of the differences? I know what they are, but just for everybody else who may not know, what are some of the differences between being married to a player and a coach?
That's a great question. I think the main difference for us is the time during football season. The players, I mean, obviously spend a lot of time preparing for the games. What I guess I didn't realize when he was a player was how much more time the coaches spend getting everything ready for the players. And so that has been I think probably the biggest difference. Other than that, I feel like still very connected to the team in the same way that he would have been as a player. It doesn't feel too much different in that way. Really, it's just the time, I think.
That's what I would guess, and what I've heard other people say is the time. Mm-hmm. You know, and your coach, your husband, he's a hot name. You know, he interviewed for. Did he interview, or did they try to interview him and he couldn't this past season?
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so you know, as he climbs the ladder, the time is, you know, there's going to be less and less time.
That's
you know,
what I've heard.
So, you know. It's going to be less and less.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, and look, that's the trade-off, and, you know, you make it work. I think my feeling was I never wanted my husband to feel like I want him to be the best version of him that he can be. I don't want to be the person holding him back from that. So if you want to climb the ladder and that's what gives you joy, I'm going to support you, because I don't want you to look back over your life and go, well, I didn't get to do that because my wife didn't want me, you know, to work 13 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Like, no, quality over quantity. We'll make the most of our quality time, and then, you know, you climb the ladder and I got you. Mm-hmm. That's always kind of been my thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Do you ever get to see your brother play, you know, who's with the Patriots? Well, tell us about him. What position does he play?
He is a cornerback, so he plays on defense. And actually last year, the Patriots played here against the Commanders for a preseason game. And so we got to go and see him. He didn't play very much because he was a starter, and they didn't play their starters. Typically, they don't in the preseason games. The starters don't play all that much, but it was really fun to get to see him. I get to watch his games on TV, but that's the only time that I've been in person to see him play in the NFL. In college, I probably saw 3 or 4 of his games. But yeah, I just have to watch on TV like everyone else.
Now, do your parents, when you were competing, did they come to a lot of your competitions?
They would come to any that they could. I competed a lot in South America. So outside of probably like a handful of meets that I would have in the States, a lot of my competition was international. So it wasn't always easy for them to get to, but I did get to have my mom come to a World Championships that I ran at that was actually hosted at Oregon while my brother was in school at Oregon. And so my mom came, and so she got to see me and my brother, and they both came to the meet, and that was really fun and a cool opportunity just because that World Championships happened to be hosted in the U.S. that year.
That is nice. So how many medals do you have? Do you count them, or do you know?
I honestly, I couldn't tell you. Not because there's so many. I don't know. I don't have any medals from World Championships or Olympics. And really, you don't get a lot of medals, like, except for at those big meets. So, yeah, I don't know.
Now, if you had to think back over a race that was the most special or the most significant for you, which race would that be?
That is a great question. I think there are 2 that come to mind. And the first one was my first race that I got to run at an international meet in Europe, where track and field is very big in Europe. It's not as popular in the U.S., but in Europe they have all these different competition circuits where athletes from all over the world come and compete. So my first race that I got to run in Europe was really special just because it felt like I really solidified my pro career, getting to go and run on one of those circuits. And then the most special is probably the race that's from the Olympics. That's the race, that video of David watching me. And yeah, I think it was just the most prepared that I had felt for a race out of any race that I had ever run. And it was the Olympics. It was my dream to go to the Olympics my whole track career. And that was like the realization of that dream. And so it was just a cool full circle moment.
And that was 2021 Tokyo Olympics?
Yes.
And that was the qualifying race for the finals in the 400 meter?
So I ran, the 400 meter hurdles. And that was the first round of 3 rounds.
That is such a bit, like, do you ever stop and just think, I really did it. I really did the thing. Do you ever just let yourself sit in like how much you have accomplished?
No, I guess probably not, but I think it's very cool and very special to me to have been able to do that. And I think the reason why I don't think about it that much is because it feels like just like so not real. Because I'm just like, I feel like I'm just a regular person, and God blessed me with the ability to run, and so I truly just feel like that He has to get the glory of that. And so it doesn't feel like I can just sit and be like, oh, I did all of this cool stuff, when I really don't feel like it was me.
You are so humble, and that's, when I was looking at your Instagram, it was seek justice, something else, and walk humbly. And that really does, what is it? Do you remember what it is?
It's seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly.
And that really is, like, just from talking to you, during this, because we had never really met other than, just a brief introduction. And last week when I cornered you at the dinner and said, hey, I want to have you on my podcast. But that really, to me, is like emblematic of who you are. You are so humble. And I think that speaks a lot about your parents as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Your dad, coming here from Colombia, you guys must be the realization of the American dream for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I definitely think that it has been cool for him to see how we've continued kind of his legacy of competing since he came here, and didn't get to end up being in the NBA, but to see his kids get to compete for Colombia in World Championships and the Olympics and the NFL. I hope that we're making him really proud.
Yeah, that, and just, you all seem like good people. You know, you're a phenomenal mom. I mean, it's just, you're checking so many boxes, but you're so humble about it. It's just really refreshing. There's so much to talk to you about besides being an NFL wife. So I call this podcast Superwives of the NFL, an inside look at our stories. So as far as being an NFL wife, which is fascinating, because I think for you, if I were to write out your biography, that's such a small part of it, because you have so many other things going on. What has the NFL, life and the NFL sisterhood been for you? I know we talked about, the women with Detroit, which is just, Detroit is a great city. That's a great organization. And the women there are so nice, but what has this sisterhood been like for you, and how have these women supported you? We touched on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think our first year in Detroit, someone pulled me in and said, hey, you should come to this Bible study that was, I think, held at one of the other wives' houses, and I hadn't met any of them. And they had kind of started meeting a couple weeks before that I moved officially to Detroit. So I was super nervous, but going there and meeting other women who had the similar beliefs that I did, who were living the same life and glorifying God in the process, was very refreshing to me. And they became kind of my community, and examples of how you can be in such a world that's so materialistic and can be perceived a certain way and really stand out and be different. That was really special to me, and I still keep up with those women on Facebook and Instagram, and just so supportive, so encouraging, and constantly pointing me back to, okay, this is the right path. This is what God wants for your life, and this is how we can live that way in this world that it might not seem like you can.
I don't think many people know, most of the teams, or every team that I've been on, there is always a Bible study for the wives. And I did it in Buffalo because that was just the first time when we were there that I was able to go, and I connected with so many of the women there. And we did it, it was coaches and players' wife. I was a coach's wife, but we did it with coaches and players. And I became friends with a lot of the players' wives there through Bible study, and we still keep in touch because it was so grounding. It kept you focused on what is important. And, a lot of people don't realize that those are the types of things also that, go on in this world. There is a focus on a higher power and how this is not always about you and, all of those things.
Yeah, that is very special. And I do think that there is a Bible study on all 32 teams. And what's really cool is that they're all connected. So usually everyone is doing the same study that's kind of sponsored by an outside organization, that is written by an outside organization. And so if you end up moving teams in the middle of the year and you end up on a different team, you can jump right back in because they're doing the same study.
So Melissa, I just want to thank you for coming on. Melissa Gonzalez Blough, you're a medalist. You're a track and field medalist. You are an NFL wife and mom, but I know from talking to you, you are very humble, and it's the title of wife, mom, wife, in any order that means the most to you, right?
Oh, for sure.
Well, this was wonderful. And just, remember our little podcast, because, everybody knows David's star is rising. So we're looking forward to great things from you guys in the future. So thank you again for taking time to come on and talk with us today. Superwives of the NFL. Thanks a lot, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for listening, and thanks in advance for liking this podcast and leaving a review. Meet you here next week.